Aloha, everyone. Good afternoon. Wonderful to see all of you beautiful people here for this incredible
What impresses me is he
opportunity
speaks
to
so.
hear about a species that is so beloved to us and from a presenter that we all think so. That phone just doesn't think so. Anyway, my name is Thomas Daubert. I'm the executive director of the Friends of Kauaʻi Wildlife Refuges, and welcome, welcome. So nice to have you here, and welcome to the folks as well who are on Zoom. So for all of us, just an FYI that we are recording this as well. So please be mindful of your background noise. For you folks, kind folks on Zoom, we have Patty who is administering the chat room. So if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to put them in there, and we'll bring those into the room and Hob can address them for you. So for those of you who know us well, welcome back. For those of you online and in the house here who may not be as familiar with us, this is my chance once a month to give a little plug for who we are as a friends group and what we do. So I know it's a bit repetitious for some, but for those new folks, I'm just really proud of the work that we do and the opportunity that we have to serve. And so happy to champion that. So this series, the Princeville Moʻolelo, is a collaboration between the Friends of Kauaʻi Wildlife Refuges and the Princeville at Hanalei Community Association, which is why we get to enjoy this beautiful space. So I'm happy to produce these monthly talks, bringing together all kinds of different conservation and Hawaiian cultural voices and stories, and really create and celebrate community. This is what it's all about, bringing us all together. So thank you so much for being here. Who we are as a friends group, we are so honored for the last 42 years to help support the incredible work of our friends with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that administer the 3 national wildlife refuges located on the island of Kauaʻi. Of course, that's Hanalei, Kuleana, and Kilauea Point are the 3 refuges we help support. And the real why, the real reason we get up every morning is to help protect the threatened and endangered seabirds and waterbirds that desperately need our awareness and our protection. And that's why we're all coming together. So thank you so much for that. The how we show up is basically by providing funding support for fish and wildlife, in-kind staffing support, and community outreach. Again, what we're doing today, bringing the community together and bringing the mission of the refuge off refuge out into the community. A number of programs that we traditionally support as a friends group, basically responding to the needs of the refuge when they say, we have an unfunded need to help maintain our space, do native plant restoration, wildlife monitoring, all the real heart and the meat and potatoes of the work of Fish and Wildlife. If they need a little bit more support financially to do that, that's what we're here to do. In addition, like I said, coming out into the community, in particular, it's an absolute delight to engage with families and young people out in the community. Conservation certainly depends upon the awareness of young people, and so it's a real delight to engage with littles and bring our mission to them in a really fun, friendly way. We support the rehabilitation of wildlife. We have a friend here from Save Our Shearwaters. Aloha, Jacqueline. We love Save Our Shearwaters, and we are really honored that as a friends group, we are able to provide the financial support to underwrite the cost of care provided by SOS for all of the birds transferred from one of our 3 refuges. So that's just an incredibly tangible way that we're able to help. In addition, supporting environmental education with the littles by providing free field trips, buses for the field trips for the young people in our Mōlī awareness, Mōlī life cycle program. And at the other end of the scale, providing scholarships for students that are studying in conservation-based careers. And this year we are anticipating, last year we gave $25,000 away in scholarships, and this year we're anticipating increasing that to $30,000. So we like to really think that the impact of that is kind of immeasurable as the ripple effect goes out into the world. And all of you are helping us make that happen. So thank you so much. A quick plug for a new thing that's happening that we just want to mention. We are collaborating with the Garden Island Arts Council on the Kauaʻian o Hawaii program, which is a culturally centered and educational program, essentially to develop a beautiful new mosaic tile art installation that is going to grace that retaining wall out at Kilauea Point. So those of you that know that space well, that long expanse of concrete has just been begging to tell a story. And these incredible folks at the Garden Island Arts Council are going to help us do that. So volunteers like yourselves are actually have the opportunity to help create that mural. And the next workshop in the community to do this is on February 22nd. And I have a flyer on the table in the back if anyone is interested in signing up. There's a link right on there. You yourself will be able to help put that tile together and later see that up on the wall. Like I said, workshops coming. So essentially, if you love what we do, if you love being a part of this community, please visit us at Kilauea Point, but with a little asterisk there. Shop our nature store, volunteer, donate, join as members, join our email newsletter. I believe that list is making its way around here. Staying in touch with you through our newsletter is really an important part of that sense of community that we have. So thank you for putting your name on there and becoming a part of our ohana. A couple of quick updates regarding Kilauea Point and the experience. Currently, the overlook right at the very entrance to Kilauea Point is under construction. That team is making really great progress. And so by the end of, actually early next week, they anticipate the overlook at the point at Kilauea Point to reopen, and you'll be able to enjoy those views right there. However, big news is that Kilauea Point itself is going to be closed for 2.5 months starting next week. So this is your chance. If you're here on island or if you're on Zoom there, get on a flight, make your way here. We are open. We are open until Saturday. And then Kilauea Point is going to be closed for a major restoration project, improving the water line, the flow of water, rain flow down into the refuge, making a wider, safer entrance driveway. All of us know as we're weaving around Nene, coming down that basically one-lane road, how much better that's going to be. So we'll be closed though until basically April 30th. So that's a big deal. We want to make sure everyone knows this week is your chance. Get out there and enjoy those incredible views. This series will continue. We don't yet have someone plugged in for March. However, we do already can already look ahead that in mid-April, Uncle Gary Smith is going to come back and do another talk story with us about the history of how Nihoku and Mokulea Point were originally protected and preserved. It took a lot of work from the community to add those precious lands to Kilauea Point, and he has a really wonderful history lesson and story to share with us, and for us to preserve that through this talk story session so that we can remember that for all time. That's going to be a really cool one in April. And then our friends from the Kauaʻi Forest Bird Recovery Project will be with us in May. So stay tuned. You'll hear about this through our newsletter. That's how we'll continue to bring us together through community. But today we have the incredible Hob Osterlund. You know, we know the many different hats that she wears as a bird guider, a photographer, an author, a comedian. Some of you may even know her back from her days as a nurse. She's all of those things. She's so passionate and incredible as an advocate for our wildlife, and in particular, her knowledge and awareness and passion for the Mōlī is just delightful. She is delightful. She's a dear friend of the organization, and we're in for such a treat. So thank you, Hob, and thank you folks for being here. Thank you.
Are we in?
You're in.
Are we good?
You're on.
Okay. Hi. What a crowd. How fantastic. I'm supposed to now wander an inch at a time until I get a thumbs up from this nice lady over here that I'm actually in the light, as they say, because Thomas was standing in the dark with this one burned out. Okay. Now I'm blocking my slide now. This way a little more.
You're looking better.
Oh, good. Keep, right. Keep going. I'm good. You can see me now. Okay.
Maybe I step a little bit back this way.
And when the music stops.
Musical chairs. Okay, very online. I packed the house with the friends to say nice things. Hi, everybody. Hi. So here we are to talk about Mōlī. I want to say a couple of things before we start. There's a sign-up list that's going around to receive the Kilauea Point newsletter, the Friends of the Kauaʻi Wildlife Refuges newsletter. So please sign up for that. And also, one of the things that is back there is a form, wildlife advocacy form. There are two bills that are before the House and the Senate here in the state legislature. One of them is requiring all cats be spayed or neutered. And that is being heard tomorrow. It's passed the first committee. It's in the second committee tomorrow for the Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. So I'll pass this around. If you just want to scan this QR code, you can send in your support for that. We want all cats to be spayed and neutered unless they're a special breeder of a special kind of cat. But otherwise, we want all cats to be sprayed and neutered. That should really help. And the second one is a bill that would hold owners responsible for the behavior of their cats. How about that, huh? So anyway, let me pass that around. You want to scan it in on your phone, then please feel free to go in and say, yes, I support. That's all you have to do is say, yes, I support. We want lots of advocacy. Also in the back of the room, there are things for sale, and I'm going to give these back to Margaret in a minute because she thinks I stole them. We have designed by the one and only Susan Durker, who doesn't want me to point to her because she's too shy, but she's right here in the second row. See, aha. You want to come get these? And is her book back there too? Is Susan's book back there?
Sorry.
Oh, no, okay, her book is not back there, but my two books are Holy Moly and The Birds of Kilauea Point are both back there. They should all be signed. Actually, I don't know if these ones are, but these are all signed. And if you want me to inscribe them personally for you, I'd be delighted to at the end. Okay, so those are available. Margaret, if you want to get these are available to return. Okay, and I want to point out one other person for sure. If at the end of this talk or during the talk you feel like, you know what, I really want to do something to help these birds, I want to really help, I want to introduce you to Jacqueline. Stand up, Jacqueline, please. From Save Our Shearwaters. It also should say Save Our Mōlī, Save Our Native Birds, Save Our Everybody's. These folks do an absolutely incredible job, and they need help with driving birds from one place to another. So if you're here short time, you can help. If you're here a long time, you can help. But talk to Jacqueline right there. She has done us the favor of not coming with squid puke on her today. She worked in the office today and not in the rehab part, right? So she's not covered with whatever you want to call that. Yeah, puke. Yeah, bird puke and squid parts. So anyway, talk to Jacqueline if you feel like you'd like to help. You all can be amazing with things like that. Okay, there's a whole bunch of people here who know a lot about albatross. There's one person who I will remain nameless, Susan Durker again, who's been here, I think, 10 times. I think she has the record now. She's now blushing. Now she hates me. I'm sorry, Susan. I can't help myself. If I put the microphone in front of you is when our friendship would be over, right? Not yet. Very good. Nikki's here. She's been a supporter for a very long time. Janine is here. Kathy Granham has been monitoring the birds in Princeville for 20 years, every single day during season. Stand up, Kathy Granham. Stand up a minute, Kathy. There she is, right there. So if you want to know who's that bird related to, and is that bird's grandmother, she'll be able to tell you. And she'll say, those two had an amicable divorce. And, and then this one hooked up with so-and-so who didn't return. So then she got together with a girl. And now those two have been together for a long time, never had a fertile egg until this year, right? There you go, right? She knows the backstory on all these birds. So delightful, delightful stories about the albatross. Okay, so there are people in here who might not know very much, and there are people here that know a lot. And so my hope is that this will be entertaining to all of you. That I have some new stuff and some old jokes. So if you only remember three things, I'd like you to remember these three things. Kauaʻi is the only place in the world, and especially Princeville, where any species of albatross nests among humans. All the other 22 species of albatross nest all over the world in remote islands and places you can't even get to, much less ride 40-foot swells to get to near Antarctica. Hard places to get to. None of them live among people except the ones here in Princeville. And now one, I have to say, congratulations to Poipu. We now have one on the South Shore for the first time in recorded history. So it's 393 nests on the North Shore and one on the South Shore. But hey, right? We're all for them. So it's on a hotel ground, so they are doing all they can to keep that chick safe. She's just hatched. Just this, yeah. The second thing I want you to remember is that albatross spend 90% of their lives airborne and solo. I try to grasp the bird that can live to, we know, to be almost 80, who lives 90% of their lives solo and airborne. They're built for solitude. They're built for fasting because it takes a long time to find the food. They're just built for a life that's so unlike ours, it's hard to imagine. And you would think that because they spend so much time solo, that they would be shy socially or unable somehow. But boy, oh boy, do they love each other's company when they're here. You've all watched it. Anybody who's been here and watched them dancing and whinnying and mooing, if you ever have a chance to see mates reunite, it's a really joyful experience to see. They haven't seen each other for months, mate for life. They say, we say after studying them all this time, they mate for life except when they don't. We've seen lots of exceptions and lots of variations. And so, but the mates who haven't seen each other for months and months run to each other. They're very excited and it's just lovely to watch. We'll talk more about that. The third, yes, a question already. Toward you. Is that better? Is this a hokey pokey? Is this my better side? No. Okay. And the third thing is you can help. There are always ways that you can help. Hey, Char, I didn't see you before. And Chris, hi. So it's all about what we can do as a community to support them, because we're the only people in the world who've had a chance to watch them in their life cycle here on the ground. So we can all be ambassadors for them. We can all take our great privilege and use it as a kuleana, use it as a responsibility, use it as a way to serve them because they need us to help them. So those are the three things. There will be a test at the end. And then Susan Durker, who will remain nameless, will give you a gift if you get it all right, right? All the she turns so red. It's really fun. Okay, I want to let you know I'm not a biologist. I am an advanced practice nurse, a clinical nurse specialist. I did most of my career at the Queens Medical Center in Honolulu, running a pain and palliative care program. I also worked here at Wilcox before that in the ICU, and then started a cancer nurse program here. So I go way back in that work, but I always had a great love for birds and was delighted to be able to return to Kauaʻi and be able to start serving them. My love for birds started very young. This picture shows me releasing a pigeon when I was a campfire girl, releasing a pigeon to fly home from camp to my house. And it's proof that even though you've never wondered, you've always lied awake at night wondering whether anybody could have the very same haircut all their lives. It's true. You can have the same haircut all your life. I am inspired deeply by my grandmother's cousin, Martha Beckwith, who wrote the book Hawaiian Mythology. She was an anthropologist here. And it was in that book that I learned the concept of aumakua. Aumakua in Hawaiian is something like perhaps a totem animal is in mainland First Nations or Canadian First Nations. It's an animal or a wind pattern or rain or something that comes to you as your ancestor. It is your ancestor in another form who advises you, guides you, protects you, warns you. That kind of, and how you know that you've met that person is, or that being is how you feel around them. So I think many people feel a special kinship to the albatross. Maybe that's true for you. It was certainly true for me. This is typically what you can see me doing, is wandering around in colonies, taking pictures and checking fences and traps and all the things that we do, excuse me, to keep the albatross safe while they're here. About a decade ago, I founded the Kauaʻi Albatross Network because a biologist on Oahu who's revered to us said, you folks should form a hui. because there's so many people on Kauai who care. So that's what got started. I got the privilege of being in Midway one year. It's very, very hard work. Louise Barnfield, I want you to meet. Louise Barnfield just came back from being the team leader at counting. I'm going to say 620,000 Laysan albatross nests, but it's not right. It's 619,072. You're not quite. No, you're wrong. She is retired from Oracle and she knows her numbers. And so Louise keeps track of data for us. But she just came from the very arduous task of marching through hail and wind and rain and heat and mud and everything to count all these albatross. So, and it's not the first place number of nests, it's the second place, second highest count. So that's good. And we also have actually the first highest count in 10 years here, since we've been keeping track of all the properties. Oh, I want to point out, there are 3 species of albatross in this picture. Here's the black-footed albatross, the Laysan albatross that you're familiar with the wings out, and back here is a short-tailed albatross. There's only 4 or 5 of them at Midway right now. Yeah, so at this point, he was looking for a mate. There's one nest, okay. They were very, very endangered, mostly in Japan. I want to tell you a little bit about Midway and where Louise has just come back from. It's a little over 1,000 miles northwest of Kauai. You see how we are here, Kauai with the star and Midway with the star. And it's called Midway because it's roughly midway between the West Coast and Asia. And actually, it's really close to the international date line. So if you stand on the roof of the barracks there, you can see tomorrow. Right? You can. That's true. So this is where most of them are. They used to call it Pihimanu. Now they have a different name for it. Kauaʻi. Yeah. And so most of the Laysan albatross in the world are there, and in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, like Laysan and Kure and French frigate shoals, those are the islands where they also nest. Kauai, if you notice, so Midway with the 620,000, here on Kauai we have 394. So, and if you add the 93 that are at Lehua, the little island next to Niihau, we have, if you add those two together, we have 0.001% of the world's population of Laysan albatross. So we'll talk about why that matters. Then I contacted Cornell Lab of Ornithology to see if they wanted to do is that better? Better? I keep going into the dark side. I don't know. I'll let you know what I find out there. Where was I? Oh, Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Yes. So they said yes, they jumped at the chance. And it took us 18 months to find a property that was appropriate, that had the right bandwidth and the right power and the right people to be able to do it. And then we were able to do it at one property for 2 years, another one for another 3 years. So 5 years, we were able to do live streaming camera on an albatross chick growing up. First time the whole world had been able to see that happen. And we got this much in those 5 seasons, all 190 people from 190 countries. Oh, thank you. 190 countries, 60 million views, millions and millions of minutes viewed. And we were 30 months live watching the camera. So Nikki was one of the first albatross cam operators, and Susan, and the last two, Nikki and Susan. Yeah. And so we had a blast until we didn't. What were you pointing at? And Patty. Oh yes, of course. Over here, Patty. Patty actually was attending one of these talks in the library across the street, right? What year was that? So 10 years ago. So Patty was in the audience and came up afterwards and said, how can I help? And now she's the president of the Princeville Community Association. She's on the board of the Friends group. She volunteers at the lighthouse. She does all kinds of stuff. You can't slow her down. See, so any one of you could be Patty. Then I wrote this book, Holy Moly, then 2016. And after that, I started getting asked about bird guiding, and that's sort of how I began doing bird guiding. It became organically became the fundraising arm of the Kauaʻi Albatross Network. And then produced a little 8-minute film called Kalama's Journey. If you haven't seen it, you can go to Vimeo and see it there. It's only 8 minutes long, and it's a story of an albatross chick raised by 2 moms here, and how well she did. And she actually has her own nest this year. Her chick just hatched, and she's only 7. So normally they don't breed till they're closer to 10. So we're very excited for Kalama. And then the Birds of Kilauea Point, we did together with Margaret and Thomas, and I put together that she's holding it up. Yes, you too could have one. Birds of Kilauea Point. That's more a picture book. The Holy Moly is more stories of albatross that I've known and what they've had to deal with. But it's fun to read. It's more like a novel than it is a fact book. Okay, yes, question.
So, for the book that this time, the live stream, are there other videos online?
Okay, the question is that they missed the live streaming camera and they wondered if there are any YouTube videos. I believe Cornell Lab of Ornithology has a collective of those 5 years that you can find on their. I think you can find it on their website. There are some YouTube videos. Do you know, Susan? Ah, yes, oh yes, absolutely. Susan Durker, who goes nameless again, but she brought it up herself this time, so I can't be blamed for this one. Yeah, so she has on her website, it's called albatrossofkauaʻi.com. Albatrossofkauaʻi.com has a whole collection of videos of Koloa that first year. Thank you. I just wanted to show you a graph here because we tend to focus on the federal lands when we're here together because we're with the Friends group, but I want to point out that 61% of the albatross nesting on Kauai are nesting on private properties. So those birds, those landowners need support to know what to do to protect the birds, because they might move here, they might buy the property and think, what are those big gulls doing on my property, right? And so most of them, I would say actually all of them offer a degree of support. We don't have anybody that's antagonistic to them unless there's maybe somebody in Princeville every once in a while, but we don't in the rural lands have anybody who's antagonistic to them. And many of them are willing to put their own resources into protecting them as well. So I just wanted you to get that sense that a whole bunch of them are on private properties. And the 11 miles of coastline between Princeville and Anahola. Anahola being the farthest reach, your end down there, Chris and Char, your end down there, all the way up to Princeville, because we have elevated bluffs, right? We have the elevated bluffs that they need. They also nest over in the Pacific Missile Range facility on the west side, but those eggs are all gathered and put into an incubator and then brought to give as adoption eggs to the female pairs or other birds, other albatross up here who have infertile eggs. Because we don't want them nesting there due to the runway. There's an aircraft. There are aircraft, naval aircraft that come in and nobody wants a collision. To my knowledge, there's never been one, but nobody wants one. The wingspan you can appreciate from certain angles better than others. That's a 6.5-foot wingspan. When they fully arch them out, you can really see human gliders were built to this same ratio. They looked at albatross and said, that's what we want to do. So if you've ever flown in or seen a human-made glider with no engine, just floating on wind, that's that shape. They come in November, as they've been out to sea for several months. They come into November and are here to reunite with their mates. The breeding couples are here to reunite with their mates. As far as we know, they haven't seen them for months. And mate for life with albatross, besides that it doesn't always mean that, but mate for life, let's just say that it does, means the equivalent of about 2 weeks a year together. That's why it works so well. Why does everybody nod in recognition when we say that? No time to get irritated with each other. It's all just love. It's all just great. We're so excited to see each other. They're so excited to see their babies. They're so excited to see their eggs. It's a wonderful thing to watch. So, oh, how did we get to that one so fast? Oh, well, I guess we'll go to that one. So how do they find their way to Kauai? How do they find their way out of that vast North Pacific, which is 12 million square miles or so, The whole US is 4 million square miles. So we're talking about a place that's 3 times the size of the whole United States, including Alaska. They're foraging for food. And then if you were to track them, they're meandering all over the North Pacific. They're looking, they're up by the Aleutian Islands and Russia and Japan and all over the place looking for food. But when it's time to reunite with their mate, they make a straight line here. How do they do that? How do they know where they are in time and space like that? So for a long time, we've been thinking it's because they smell their way, because they have a nose map. They make a map with their nose in their brains where they are in the Pacific. But now it's also thought that they're making a sound map, that they can hear what the ocean sounds like, that it varies from place to place depending on the seamounts, depending on how far away the waves are. But isn't that an intriguing idea to think of the ocean having a voice and being able to understand the ocean's voice? Gives me chicken skin to think of that. So you can block their ability to see stars, and you can block their ability to read the magnetic field, and they can still find their way, right? They can bank vertically like that. If you notice when they fly over the dynamic soaring that they do over the ocean like this without any flapping. In fact, a scientist put a camera on the back of an albatross and measured a full 7 days without a single wing beat. They are 0-calorie flyers a lot of the time, doing this without flapping. But when they come up to here this way, they go vertical for just a moment. Notice their heads stay horizontal, and then they go back down. So inside these nostrils here, they do 2 things like we do. We can breathe and smell through these nostrils. They also desalinate. If you lie awake at night and think, how does a seabird get fresh water? It's because they desalinate salt water. So you see dripping at the end of the beak, that means they've just eaten. And inside of their nostrils, they have a speedometer that tells them when they're going fast enough to be able to do this, right? If you're in an airplane that goes like this, you're not happy about it, right? It will lose lift, as they say. It will stall. But if you're going fast enough, like you can see the angels flying like that because they're going fast enough. Albatross has to know it's going fast enough to do that. So it has that wonderful speedometer inside its nose, like that pitot tube in an airplane. It measures air pressure. And then they meet each other. They're excited to see each other, and they dance. See that excitement, that animation? So they're excited to see each other. They've gotten back together, and then here we go. Then they decide, okay, time to make baby. So they make baby. That, I don't know. So that's how it looks every time. So the thing is, albatross are not perching birds. So for the male to perch on the back of a female, he has to figure out how to perch, to stand on her shoulders. And all birds, almost all birds, have just a cloaca. They have one hole for doing what we need more than one hole for. And I'm sure you can figure out what that all means. So they have one hole, always one hole. And so he then has to get his cloaca lined up with hers. And it looks about like the size and shape of a pencil eraser. So they have to line those 2 things up. She moved her tail way aside. You probably couldn't tell. And he's got to thrust himself forward to get them lined up. And then the sperm has to be ready to go now. Because here's your one chance. And then the respiratory system of birds is much more complicated than with humans. We have lungs basically, but they have lungs and multiple air sacs. They don't really do inhale, exhale, more that they have a natural flow of air. And so what happens is that I think the reason the female will always toss the male off after about 60 seconds or less is I don't think she can breathe anymore. I mean, it's 8 pounds on her back when she's used to having no pounds on her back ever, right? So she gets up and she snaps at him and he snaps back at her and then they start making out again. So they quickly let go of things. They snuggle up, they have a really good time. They make the baby. Then what will happen is that the female will store the sperm in her reproductive tract. She doesn't release it to herself yet. She stores it and goes back out to sea to bulk up. She's got to have enough for that big old egg that's the length of a soda can. So she goes to get enough calories. And when she senses she's got enough food for herself and her egg, she'll come back to the site that she and her mate agreed on. And then she'll release the sperm to herself. And in a day, she'll lay an egg. Anybody's had chickens know they can lay an egg every day, right? Takes a day to make an egg in general. So she's not carrying around that big heavy thing when she's flying. She waits till she gets back, releases it, and then here goes this egg. So, and then they both have to go back out. She lays the egg. He's back out at sea getting food too. Excuse me. And then if he's a experienced mate, he'll come in and take over for her. So she can go replenish the calories she just spent making that gigantic egg. So then about that time, when we're talking about now, the eggs have been laid and the mates have chosen their nest sites, then the teenagers start coming. So the teenagers here, you could turn on the volume. It's like a game of monkey see, monkey do. You look left, I'll look right. I'll sky moo, you sky moo. I'll bob, you bob. Okay, let's parry. No, armpit sniff, armpit sniff. No, sky moo. Okay, you do it, I'll do it. You look left, I'll look right. No, let's do this way. Hey, no, you do, I do it, you do it. And that's how they practice. That's how they do this dance that they practice, that they get much more skilled at when they become mates. Am I moving again? Where am I going? Here? Is that okay? Is that okay? Okay. Yes, you see, I have to keep doing this thing. That's why. Okay, so then she lays an egg. And if it's a female-female pair, she lays 2 eggs. That's how we tell, not she, both females lay an egg. That's how we tell. This one is not being incubated. This one has been pushed out and it will further be pushed out more. So this pair is a female-female pair. These are Kalama's parents. These 2 girls have pushed out an egg and the other one that they kept is infertile. So they're going to get an adoptive egg. This was Kalama's adoption. Not a moment of resistance, right? A little bit to that person coming close with a clack clack for that one briefly. But I have never once, in all the adoptions I've seen, I've never once seen an albatross resist getting an adoptive egg. And were you around, Kathy, when they were giving live chicks instead of eggs? And they didn't resist that either, right? Yeah, I know. Like, oh, wow. Right? So that's originally when they started the adoptions from the Pacific Missile Range, they brought chicks, little chicks, like a week old or 2, right? And bring them and slide them under the egg. And the parents would look down and go, oh, son of a gun, look at that. But no resistance. And they have a really good sense of smell. So you could imagine that they smell the truck, the container the chick was brought in, the handling, the gloves. They must smell foreign smells, but they don't at all resist that chick. That's part of what makes them quintessentially Hawaiian, the concept of hanai, to adopt, to take on, to make someone your own, even though they're not related by blood, more chicken skin. That's how they are. So quintessentially Hawaiian because master navigators and hanai so easily, take others into their family so easily. This is at Midway, for those of you who wonder again how they get fresh water. Not only do they desalinate, they try to drink rain. That's what a Midway nest looks like, made out of fine grains of sand. Okay, let's talk about numbers here for a minute. I'm going to have to move away from the light for a moment. So Kuʻai Milane Midway, 620,000 that we talked about already. Kauai County, 483 when we count the 93 from Lehua. So that ends up being that 0.001%. Oahu has 172 nests on Kaena, James Campbell National Wildlife Refuge in Kahuku. They have mongoose all over their island, so they have to work very hard to protect them. We do too, but their problem is even worse with the mongoose. So why does every chick matter? If we only have 0.001% of the population, right here, why does every chick matter here? Why do we treat every chick like each one of them is golden? Because Midway is going to go underwater. Midway's on its way to going underwater. It depends on who you ask, but when in 2012, when that tsunami happened in Japan and that the earthquake happened in Japan and the big tsunami was generated, it washed a 5-foot wave across Midway and took out, according to Beth Flint, 250,000 albatross chicks. 250,000 albatross chicks. And the only good news about the timing of that was in March instead of February. Had it been February, it would have taken parents with it, or a parent with it, which we would have lost an entire half of the breeding population. So the chicks were all lost, but the problem is that's storm surge, that's not sea level rise, but sea level rise is happening. So that's the picture from 2017. And this was an estimate from a number of years ago, how it would look in 2100, where you see Eastern Island is almost gone. The other tiny one is almost gone. And basically the runway and everything around the periphery of Midway of Sand Island is gone. So where will these birds go if they don't have a breeding population, if they don't have a place to safely breed? Kauai has 3 things. We have elevated bluffs, we have an absence of mongoose, and we have people who care. That makes us a Noah's Ark for them. Will they come here? We don't know. All we can do is create the opportunity for them, right? We get a lot of unbanded birds that show up here and we don't know where they're from. So hopefully they're bringing their friends. Then the egg starts to hatch. First there's a little tiny pinhole, and then there's a dime, and then there's a quarter. It takes the chick about 3 days to hatch. And in the end, when they've got enough of the egg broken, then they use their shoulders like this to break open the shell. And then what happens is they collapse on their parents' feet because they're exhausted and wet. And even in that condition, the baby with its oculi still in the shell, the baby can raise its feeble little head and get a feeding. We've seen it happen. We've seen the parent give a little dribble of squid oil. And squid oil is such high octane food. Anybody here ever feels like, God, I really got to gain weight? Squid oil is your friend. Drink squid oil. It really smells bad though. Okay, and then this is also the time that we have to worry more about predators when the chicks are really little. Pigs are a big issue. Pigs have devastated and even eaten the adults. So we're doing all we can to keep fences up to keep them away. And cats. And you see on this one slide, you see the cat close to that nest. In the morning, the camera only got that shot, but in the morning that chick was a piece of tissue next to the nest and all gone, not even eaten, but just killed, because that's what cats do. That's what they're programmed to do. So this video I'm going to show you on the right side, I had captured this cat on a trap that was just on the periphery of the colony. And so I moved it in so the cat would be in the shade. So while I was there, so it would be not in the sun. And this is what the albatross did in not seeing the cat in the cage. It's like making friends. Just curious. Meadowlark. And then decides there's nothing to see here and walks away. But I want you to notice that the albatross is like almost all the other native birds in Hawaii in that they don't know what a predator is. They didn't grow up around predators. We don't have foxes and raccoons and coyotes and all those things here. Never have. So those birds grew up without any need to set up a defense for that. The kolea, the Pacific golden plover, nests in the Arctic. That's why they know what a predator is. And that's why they thrive here, because their babies grow up somewhere else where they have strategies to keep them alive. And then they come back here where they go to every island. And they're probably, I would say they're Hawaii's most popular bird, the Pacific golden plover, because they're in everybody's yard, all over the state, because they know how to get away from predators. Okay, so I mentioned about this cat bill. This is the one about responsible pet management. One is about responsible pet management related to spaying and neutering, and the other one is about the one that holding cat owners responsible for the actions of their pets. It would also prohibit the release of cats on state lands. So both of those bills are in the legislature to try to prevent some of this predation issue. Yes. How can the people online? Yes. Thomas has an answer, I think. What?
I was gonna say, unless you want to put it in.
Is Margaret bringing it forth? But for people online. Mhm. Thank you. Yes, do.
So this here, how do people online get it?
Okay, Birds of Kilauea Point, how do they get that book?
That is in our e-store.
Uh-huh. So you go to Kauaʻi Refuges, KauaʻiRefuges.org, and then go to the store, the nature store.
And it's the only place you can get.
It's the only place you can get that book. Yes. Yeah, and there's some back there. Yes, sir.
Kauaʻi has about 20 feral cats right next door to it. There's something done. I'm in that section. One board.
Yeah, so Thomas and I and another colleague of ours have been meeting with association boards and general managers, and we're asking of them to commit to not allow feeding of feral cats on their property. So that's a place you can start. There's another board that's made a lot of progress with that, and other general managers who have committed to it. So if you have 20 feral cats on the property, it means somebody's feeding them. So, and it's sometimes the employees of the business there.
We're addressing that. No programs there.
We are trapping at this time of year. We know where all the nests are, and we trap in areas where they're especially vulnerable. And we can call someone to find out whether they're a pet or not, and take them away if they're not. Yeah, but talk to me afterwards. Okay, well,
What one of the frogs?
I'm sorry?
Frogs?
Do they do what?
The frogs.
Wow, I've never had that question. Yeah, over here in Kailani, our manager said he caught 3,000 of them and carried them away somewhere. Maybe he took them to your house. Oh, I know. I don't think they bother the albatross. Maybe, no, I can't. Jacqueline, have you ever had a call? This albatross chick has been hurt by this frog. Waterbirds? Well, in Honolulu, of course, yeah. And what do they do to them? They eat them. They eat them, yeah, and so will the cattle egrets, and so will the herons. The black-crowned night herons will also eat baby birds. So they have all kinds of things to watch out for, the water birds in Honolulu in particular. Okay, so then the egg is hatched, and the parent who's not seen the chick comes back and sees the chick. This is Janine's footage. Thank you, Janine. How about that? You're feeding your baby, and your spouse is scratching and massaging you and thanking you. And if you've ever doubt that birds can love, all you have to do is hang around albatross. So then the birds get bigger, they get really, really cute, and they get bigger. And by the time they're 2 or 3 weeks old, sometimes way younger than that, they get left alone. So they have their parents still with them for a little bit. And then the parents do what they call guard phase, where, where they just sort of stand close by and then they stare at each other. Wouldn't you just love to know what's going on in their minds? Staring at each other, are they memorizing each other's smells or each other's looks, or are they just staring because, is she staring because look at the thing, there's an adorable thing, and he's staring like, you're so big and beautiful, or what are they? I mean, they just do that. And then they nap. You know, she'll fall asleep sitting like that. He'll fall asleep. The baby will fall asleep in the nest. But they start getting moving farther and farther away from the nest. I'm sorry? Do they what? Yeah, well, maybe, I don't know. And then the chicks are about a month old and they start wandering around. And I show you this picture for two reasons. One, because I want you to see that chicks will consume their own shells. And also, this piece that's hanging from the body is called the amnion. It's the lining of the shell. It's not, the shell is brittle, but inside there's a lining like we all have ourselves in the female form. But that chick was eating the shell. And just by the way the amnion was hanging from her body, it looked like she's holding it with her wing. So this is my one and only shot I've sold to National Geographic. Yeah. Yes, right. Then here come the rains, and this is what they have to deal with. And we as a species feel compelled to feed things, right? First of all, we want to feed this baby, make sure it's fed well, and that's what we do with the geese and all kinds of things we feed, we shouldn't feed. But when a bird looks like this, all of us want to go get an umbrella. All of us want to get a heating pad or something. The bird's shivering, when the baby is shivering, you really, really want to do something, but you really, really can't. Except you can provide extra nesting material so they have a nest cup that drains well, so the baby isn't sitting in a pool of water, like they can do if the nest area is too hard scrabble. But they'll sit there and look like that, looking like, okay, what am I going to do? This is what I got. And then they get bigger. They start growing all those adult feathers, but they're still real downy. And then their parent comes back and they can't wait to eat again. So they beg, beg, beg. Feed me, feed me, feed me. More. And if they're lucky, there are gigantic pieces of squid in there and whole fish and gigantic pieces. It's amazing what they can consume. Some of these meals these chicks have gotten, I personally would have been full halfway through, and they're still eating. It's amazing how much they can consume. And then they really start wandering around even more. Their personalities start emerging. They're picking up things off the ground. They're very tactile, like toddlers. They pick things up off the ground and move them around and mouth them to see what they feel like. And when people say, "Oh, poor things, they're left alone," I've never seen a chick look like it's suffering as a result of being by itself. They don't get panicked that the parent is gone. They're built for solitude. They're really built for solitude. So they entertain themselves like a child would or a puppy would in the yard. They just sort of entertain themselves. Then their company tends to be mostly teenagers now. So these are the non-nesting birds that are here to find a mate. They tend to come back at age 5 or so, sometimes 4, usually age 5 in my experience. After they fledged from here, they jump off a cliff. They got to have the courage to jump off the cliff for the first time. Imagine, we've all been in those situations in our lives where we have to jump off a cliff because where we are is no good anymore. And so that's what they have to do. But then they don't come back for 5 years. They don't touch ground for 5 years. They land on the surface of the ocean to eat, but they're in flight most of that time. So when they come back at age 5, they start dancing and whinnying and mooing and flirting. And they tend to do that until they're 8 or 9 or 10, and then they choose a mate. So they like to hang out with the babies. Sometimes you could say that's a babysitter. Sometimes you could say that's a harasser. It depends, you know, they might poke at them and the chick goes, no, get away from me. And sometimes they just fall asleep right next to them. And sometimes they're sweet as sugar, different personalities, different moods, right? Different, everybody's different. But if there's a big field and there's a chick hidden in the weeds somewhere, the best way to spot where that chick is where are the teenagers, because they're going to be with that chick or close by often. And then the teenagers, we also leave the eggs that have been abandoned because the teenagers like to practice with them. And here's a practice session. Can I help? So we tend to think of a lot of things as instinctual, but I think a whole lot of things have to be learned. And they have to learn where to put that egg when they lay one. Often, in fact, the first year when they lay one at midway, sometimes they lay it and just keep walking. You know, and we've seen that on private properties too. I'm sure you've seen it in the refuge. They'll just put it down and we don't even know who did it because there's nobody ever on it, right? They just left it and kept on going like, wow, that was a big fart or something. I don't know what it was. So they don't know what it was, but and then the second year, hopefully they've got a little more worked out about what to do with it. But they would also do that with mangoes, avocados, tennis balls. They like the feeling of that pressure in that area, right? They want to sit on something. This is one of the reasons why we want to control mosquitoes. We had a couple of years ago, all of the chicks, virtually every single one of the albatross chicks on Kauaʻi had bad cases of avian pox delivered by mosquitoes. So mosquitoes, as you know, we're doing our best to get rid of them up in Kauaʻi because the forest birds are almost gone as a result of mosquitoes delivering avian malaria. Here with albatross, it's avian pox that they get. And so that bird actually got blinded in that eye. The other eye recovered enough to see, and that bird did fledge. But Kathy's seen some where the whole face is completely distorted. You can't even believe that they'll survive, and then they do often. Then now they're getting bigger. They're being alone a lot of the time. They sit back, they rock back on their elbows, and they put their heels really, and they put their feet up to gather vitamin D and for air conditioning. Right, that cools them off. They're in a down coat, and it's now May, right? So it's getting too hot to be wearing a down coat. And they sit like that and rock back and forth with their feet up. In fact, I'm still waiting to get the shot. Next time I want to show you the shot in which the feet were so far back on the body that you can see the impression in the down. You can see the footprint in the down. I've seen it before, but not gotten the shot. So that's the evidence that the bird is eaten. That is, the universe in a drop of water is not just poem. It's really true. In that drop of water is all the food that chick has been fed in this last day. And that food has been gathered from many thousands of miles away. That drop of water represents the whole world, really. You notice that dripping, that's what you want to see a chick doing. It means it's been fed. Then they start getting the crazy hairdos. How are we doing for time? We okay? We're doing okay for time? Okay. So when we start the crazy hairdos, if any of you follow Facebook and Instagram, I do a fake hairdo contest. I mean, like there's real judges and like there's a real contest, which there isn't, but I make like there's one. And so I put pictures that I've taken, other people have taken of hairdos. This one is the fascinator, you know, like the British ladies wearing those hats right in front of their heads like that, like princesses will do. That one, what is that? The British barrister, right? This one, I don't know what to call that one. Hairy on the neck and not on the head. I mean, really looking very silly. Which rock star you name this one after depends on what generation you're from. You'll come up with somebody. This is the Stanley Tucci look with the bald head and the hairy chest. They just look really, looking really silly. Here's the not suitable for work picture. It's really quite silly when they do that. And they are pre-programmed to puke before they fly. Albatross adults are pre-programmed to puke when they eat, when they get things, squid beaks that are in the squid that they eat, they have to puke that out. They can't digest it, like you know about owl pellets, that they get rid of feathers and bones. But with albatross, they're getting rid of the squid beak. And it looks sort of like, you remember those corners we used to use in photo books, those little black corners? It's like those. It's a little black pointy thing, and it's very sharp. And so the albatross are pre-programmed to get rid of those from their upper stomach. Let's get rid of those before we fly. So the chicks will also puke out whatever is in their indigestible in their stomach, in their upper stomach. So that means a lot of plastics these days. It means squid beaks. It means some of the vegetation they happen to have swallowed. Might mean Norfolk pine, I mean the ironwood pine seedling, seed pods, things like that. That plastic piece there is the length of a toothbrush. And that's the biggest thing I've seen come out. But it's a growing problem. Not just the big pieces of plastic, but also Jacqueline folks have seen more microplastic problems and bowel obstructions that happen from the microplastic. So we've lost several chicks in the last couple of years who don't look overtly unhealthy initially, but they have a bowel obstruction from tiny pieces of plastic the size of a grain of sand that collect and then cause an obstruction. Am I saying that right, Jacqueline? Okay. Okay. So we have found birds like that who looked very healthy, and then one day they look healthy, and the next day they're down on their side, or they're just. Janine found one last year, just couldn't even stand up. There's something you could see something was wrong, and then the Save Our Shearwaters folks will try to do everything they can to loosen that up and make it possible for them to digest again. But in one of the cases, the chick also had a piece of metal in what they'd swallowed. And so it looked like there was neurological damage from the metal and also maybe from plastic toxicity too. So plastics are becoming a bigger problem worldwide for all of us. And the albatross are among those to show it. And then it's time to fledge. They've puked out this bolus. They're ready to fledge. They run to the edge of the cliff and turn around and run back like, ah! And then they run again and run back again. And then they flap their wings. And if it's windy, they try to get some air and they run around. They try to get some more air. And you can see them. They really go into more of the monkey see, monkey do now, because now these chicks are watching each other. Like, how did you do that? I saw you got 6 inches up in the air. How did you do that? And they watch each other. They imitate each other. Let's go. Can we? No, I think I'll go back to bed. Haven't we all been in those boots, right? I'm going back to bed. That's just too hard. But ultimately, with enough hunger and enough desire and enough courage, they will fledge. They have to be strong enough. They have to have been fed well enough, but they also have to be hungry enough and desirous enough. And you can see the pull of the ocean. They can smell it. They can smell the food out there. They've seen their parents take off, but no one's ever shown them how to fly. No one's ever shown them how to find food. And now their job is to jump off a cliff, right? So it's hard to catch that very moment, but it's such a beautiful thing to watch. I put this in slow motion. This chick had wandered around in the yard for about an hour ahead of time. And then they drop down a little bit, trying to flap those wings. That's the first time their wings have really been weight bearing. Got to clear those trees. Yeah. And then they go north, where the food is. I know. If you're ever there watching a bird fledge, that's what we'll all do. We'll all clap and cheer, because it gives me such a great image of doing that when salmon are spawning, or other great things happen in nature where you see something occur that for the human species to stand up and cheer. Isn't that just, that's the third chicken skin tonight. Thank you, everybody. The cat issue made headlines in this Outdoors magazine down here. It says the crazy war over zombie cats. That was 10 years ago or so. The thing that PETA is pushing for and is a great advocate for us in this work, PETA is pushing for socially conscious humane societies instead of no-kill humane societies. No-kill humane societies sound really good on the surface, but they're terrible for birds because it means that they won't take in any cats that they can't adopt out, right? And so they need to take in cats only that they can adopt out because otherwise those cats will stay there forever and they'll stay full forever. And in fact, many humane societies are overfull anyway already and having a very hard time knowing what to do, especially and then sometimes they'll keep a dog, you know, for 7, 8, 9 years, and that poor dog's been in a cage that whole time, or the cat will never find a home. So socially conscious parenting allows shelters allows for euthanasia in situations where it's required. So that's what I support. Also, if you support trap, neuter, release, you support killing wildlife. Trap, neuter, release means that many of you know that you capture a cat, you neuter it, and then you release it back on the landscape. Well, now to me, that cat is even more dangerous than it was before because number one, you can't trap it again, and it becomes a predator of birds, and you can't trap it to stop it like you could before. You had a chance to before, and you were able to before in order for it to be trapped and neutered. And number two, people think, oh, well, if I feed it, it'll be okay. But actually, if you feed it, you're making a super predator. Because when you feed it, then that cat will still follow its instincts to go hunting, but now it's been fed. So everybody who's had a pet cat knows they bring home gifts, right? That cat is fed. Your cat has been fed, but it still will hunt. Very different personalities, one cat from another, of course. Some are very, very aggressive in hunting and some not as aggressive. But cats are programmed to hunt. That's what they do. So we're trying to do all we can to keep from losing our wildlife. But in Honolulu National Wildlife Refuge, I think we're down to 700 and something ducks, right? 700 and something Koloa ducks. We have probably 25,000, underestimation, 25,000 cats, feral cats on Kauai. And the duck, let's say there's 1,000 ducks, just for argument's sake, that's 25 cats per duck. How many are too many, right? That's the issue we have. And I personally feel that at the bottom of my heart, how I feel about it is that I don't believe in abandoning pets. I don't believe in abandoning cats or dogs or horses on the landscape. We made a covenant with them thousands of years ago that we would take care of them and they would take care of us. And now we're saying, well, I'm going back on my deal. I'm just going to dump you out on the landscape. Here, I'm going to put these 6 kittens on the landscape and make them fend for themselves. They don't live very long often, and they have diseased and injured lives. It's not cat friendly to release them either. It's not friendly to, especially not friendly to the birds, but it's not friendly to the cats either. Where's Anne? Where's Anne? There's Anne. Oh, there she is. There's Boopsie, right? So Anne right there. Anne traveled the world all her career. She did remarkable things, but all that time she wanted a cat and couldn't have one. And so now she retired here in Kauai and could finally get a cat. So she adopted somebody's abandoned pet. Am I getting the story right? Okay. So, and by the way, Queen Elizabeth gave her an OBE, just so you know how smart this woman is. So but Boopsie, she let Boopsie out. Boopsie, she found out pretty quickly, Boopsie killed birds. And Anne lives in a neighborhood where there's nesting albatross. And she loved the albatross too. Couldn't bear the idea of Boopsie either in a trap or Boopsie killing an albatross chick. So she had this catio built. So that's on her lanai that she can walk into it herself. You see Boopsie's in there. Boopsie can get, that was the temporary one. The permanent one now is up against the house, and you've taken a window pane of your door out, right? So she can go in and out on her own. Boopsie can go in and out and have lots of the outdoor life Boopsie wants, but can't kill albatross while she's at it. So she's our role model for catios. Yay, Anne. I won't read you this whole quote. I just want you to know that Dr. Kimball, who runs the Makana Urgent Care Clinic here, says he's seen horrific wounds from feral cats. So, and one of the worst ones he saw was just a tiny, tiny puncture from a kitten from the Humane Society that had been feral, and the person got a huge fungal infection. So handling feral cats is not a safe thing either. If you do decide to trap cats at your place, then please don't try to handle it. You can tell a feral cat often because they're thrashing inside the cage and very unsocialized. So, but if it scratches you, it can be very damaging. We love seeing these kind of signs in our shopping centers telling people they can't feed or bring, they can't abandon. Who knows if people follow the rules, but at least there's a sign. How can you help? So there's a Pono cat parent pledge that's on the Hawaii Veterinary Association website. I really like it, a Pono cat parent pledge. Basically, I'm going to keep it indoors. I'm going to give it medical care. I'm going to make sure it has its vaccinations. I'm going to feed it. I'm going to do the right thing to do as a pet parent. Refrain from feeding feral cats, as I already mentioned. You can donate. You can talk to Thomas about donations or about volunteering. You can talk to Jacqueline, who's now in the back holding up the wall, about volunteering or donating. Who else? Get the volunteers and volunteering, donating. Krista, Fish and Wildlife Service. Would they talk to you? Okay. You need Honolulu people. Yeah. So good. So talk to Krista about monitoring birds in Honolulu, the water birds in Honolulu. We really rely on volunteers to help with this network. The funding keeps getting cut, and who knows what's going to happen now, but funding keeps getting cut. So what you can do, you can do all kinds of things to help. I want you to really think about what would work for you and your talents. And remember those only 3 things. Hawaii's the only place in the world that these albatross nest among people. We have this great privilege that they spend 90% of their lives solo at sea. So this is their 10% of their lives. We see them coming and going from here. Tiny little peek into their lives, and that you can make a difference. And Shaka seal right to you. Thank you so much. Okay, questions? Yes.
So the eggs
Yes.
where do those birds return after they return to?
Okay, so the question is, the eggs that we take from the Pacific Missile Range on the west side, where do those chicks that hatch, they're brought up here and adopted, where do those chicks return to when they fledge? They will return to where they grew up. So I think maybe Krista or Jacqueline, you could correct me if I'm wrong about this, but my understanding is that it's at about 2 weeks old, they think is about the age that you can still move them, and much older than that, they may imprint on the property that they came from. Is that right? Is that what your understanding is? Yeah, right. Okay, so if they're 2 weeks old, you could still probably move them, but after that, they're going to imprint on the missile range and come back there. And by the way, about 50% of them make it back, and about another 50% of those make it to breeding age. So for every 4 birds that fledge from here, one of them is going to potentially be a parent here. So that's why everyone counts, right? It's not easy to survive out there. Yes.
Regarding the pledging process,
Yeah.
my understanding that Midway doesn't have.
Correct. How do they pledge without a cliff on Midway? Yeah. So how they pledge without a cliff at Midway is they run and run and run and run, and then they run out of land and they're on the water. So here's this whole flotilla of albatross chicks trying to fledge, and that's when the sharks come. That's because sharks have learned there's a smorgasbord out here at a certain time of year. And so that's when the chicks really have to take off now, because here comes this giant jaws coming up around them. We don't have shark predation problems here because we don't have huge bunches of birds all in any place. They pledge one at a time, kind of spread out. But they run and run and run and they run out of land, basically. There's no cliff. Yeah, it's all flat. Yes, sir.
Do you have any information about after the pledges, how long the time is
How far away?
when do they eat?
Oh, how soon I don't know that we know that. How soon they eat. I mean, there are geolocators that have been put on chicks, and it can show you where they are in time, in space, but it doesn't tell you. I don't think any of them tell you location, like if they're in the ocean or in the air, or or if they're with other birds. It doesn't give you that information. So I don't know. Right? I mean, it's whatever, however long it takes them, but they can fast for weeks. They just can't go too much longer than that. Sylvia.
I think you might have already said this, but of all the chicks that are born, what is the percentage of chicks that fledge?
Of all the chicks that are born, what's the percentage of chicks that fledge? So we keep track, the Kauaʻi Albatross Network and several people in this room keep track of what we call reproductive success. And that is that exact question. How many eggs resulted in a fledged chick? And last year it was 47%, something like that.
Of the ones, the eggs, yes, probably.
Yeah, so we keep a percentage. And sometimes it's been in the low 30s. And sometimes it's actually been in the 60s and 70s. So the reproductive success percentage is the thing that matters the most. Not how many nests did you start with, although that counts. It really is how many of those ended up in surviving chicks to fledge. So I personally, if it was half of them, I would say great. If it's more than that, even better. If it gets super low, we get worried. Yeah, sometimes when we have big predation events, the numbers are lower. But I'm hopeful for a good year this year. As long as we can keep avian malaria away, avian flu, as long as we can keep the avian flu away, put a dome of protection over Kauaʻi. Patty.
I have a queue of questions going here.
A queue of
Uh,
questions.
What's
Hi,
the
online
status
community.
of the predator fencing at Kilauea Point, and does it keep out all of Kauai's predators?
Say the whole question again. What?
What's the status of the predator
Oh.
fencing at Kilauea Point, and does it keep out all of the predators?
The status of the fence is that it's been complete for more than a year and it does keep out predators. Yes.
Is it possible to arrange to visit nesting sites on Kauaʻi other than those at Naeanakai?
Is it possible to visit nesting sites on Kauaʻi other than Naeanakai? Well, people in Princeville wander up to them all the time. You can wander around and see Princeville nests, and Naeanakai is a really good place to go because they have a tour now, I understand, twice a week, and you can go and be right in the middle of a colony. It's a great opportunity.
And one more question.
Okay.
I understand that the management of the Kilauea Lighthouse National Wildlife Refuge will not allow banding of the Laysan albatross. Is there any movement to get this way of thinking to allow federal and/or state banding of the birds at the refuge?
So the question is whether or not the banding of the chicks will happen at Kilauea Point this year. That there have been a few years it hasn't happened, and I don't know the answer to that question, whether it's going to happen this year. Have you heard?
Not as far as we know.
No, I don't know. A few years ago, there were, I think, 3 instances where chicks got injured during banding. Different banding teams and people who knew what they were doing, but chicks got injured during banding. And so there was some sense of and I believe that at Kilauea Point, it was stopped in that moment and said, let's see what we're doing wrong. Let's see what's happening. And there was kind of a sense that we were going to hopefully find out whether that particular cohort had weaker bones than other years or what was happening. I don't think we ever found out anything definitive. So I can't speak for the management at Kilauea Point to know what decision is going to be made about that. Sylvia.
Can you speak a little about the mosquito drop that's happening?
Can I speak about the mosquito drop that's happening in Kauaʻi? Okay, so there are sterile mosquitoes, sterile.
Easy for you to say.
Easy for me to say. Sterile male mosquitoes being released in Kauaʻi in the Alakai Swamp because the birds up there, the forest birds, are dying from avian malaria from mosquitoes. So we're releasing, after years and years of permits and studying and environmental assessments, these mosquitoes are being released so that they will mate with females who will not have eggs. It's only the females who bite, not the males. So releasing millions of males isn't going to harm you. This has been vetted through all kinds of ways of looking at ways that it could be damaging and not found to be damaging. And we are joined by the Department of Health in this because mosquitoes serve nobody in Hawaii. We know to the day when mosquitoes arrived in Hawaii in the 1820s. And because they're not native here, they don't feed any of our native birds. They only cause problems. So the idea is to rid ourselves of mosquitoes, starting with up there. They also are from helicopters dropping this stuff called BTI. This is, you can buy this in the store. It's called Dunk. You've seen these before. They look like donuts. So Dunkin' Donuts, right? So these you can put in a water trough. You can put in a water garden you have in your yard, and this will keep mosquito. I don't know if it keeps the eggs from becoming larvae or the larvae from becoming mosquitoes. Do you know which one it is? Anyway, it keeps them from becoming mosquitoes. Either way. So they are dropping these in little bits by helicopter over Kauaʻi because they need to go into the puddles where there already are eggs and larvae. Yeah. So I have floated these in ponds where they lasted for quite a while. I don't know how much, I don't know how many granules needs to be in a puddle to last, but it is successful. And the sterile mosquito release has been very successful for public health problems in several parts of the world. It's just the first time it's ever been used for conservation is here in Hawaii, because two of our 4 species are already in captivity only, right? The Akakiki and Akakeke, I think, are only in captivity. We don't want them to only know how to live in captivity, right? Does that answer your question?
Yes, I have one. Any chance of that hurting people in any way?
No, there's any chance of that hurting people anyway. The dunk you can float in cattle troughs, and the cattle come drink out of it. It doesn't hurt them. It doesn't hurt people. I wouldn't suggest you drink it, but it's only a bacteria. It isn't a poison.
Not a poison.
It's not a poison. It's a bacteria.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir. You had a question?
Long ago, I saw birds kind of gliding under the water. Did the albatross do that?
Under the water?
Under the water. I saw, this was in Monterey 30 years ago, and the bird went under the water, and I saw it like sailing along.
Oh, okay.
It was like swimming, but it was just
Sure.
out,
A lot
wings
of
out.
seabirds can do that. A lot of seabirds can dive and swim underwater for a while.
The albatross.
No, the albatross is not a diving bird. Most big wing birds are not diving birds. So the frigate, the Eva bird, and the albatross you won't see diving, although there's some evidence of some in the southern hemisphere doing a little bit of diving, but basically they'll bob for food. They're good at gliding above the water. Right. More questions? Yes, sir.
Cul-de-sac near where there are several nests. One is hatched already.
Yeah.
Several, waiting to be hatched.
Yeah.
And nearby there are all kinds of albatross doing their dance.
Right.
And so what are they doing? What are they
So
doing?
they're in his neighborhood, there are albatross chicks hatching and others waiting to hatch and other birds dancing. So the dancing will be those flirting teenagers. And sometimes they're couples that are an established couple, but they're taking the year off. And so now they're just having a boogie, right? They really do enjoy each other's company. I've seen them hang around together for as long as a couple of months before they return to sea, because they mate for life. And so except when they don't, but they love each other's company, except when they don't. So, but the ones you're going to see in your neighborhood are largely more and more now in February and March and April. You're going to see more and more of those teenagers doing all that stuff, walking across the street and dancing in the yards and all that. And there are a couple of eggs in your neighborhood that won't hatch because they're female pairs, and they're likely, if they haven't hatched by now, they're likely infertile. Has that one in Kuleana hatched, Kathy? Has that one fertile one in Kuleana hatched in the circle? It has. Okay. So the 3 that are in the circle in Kuleana, 2 of them are not going to hatch. They're female pairs, right? So some of them do get sperm donors, and some of them, and so they have fertile eggs. And the adoptions that we do, we made an appeal this year for Princeville to be able to get adoptions again like we used to. And I'm going to keep working on that until they change their minds. But if we were to give them adoptions, we wouldn't give them the adoptions in the Kuleana circle ones because they're this far from the road. And that chick is going to start wandering out into the street and is so likely to get hit by a car. So we wouldn't do it with that ones, but we do it with the ones out in the golf course, and do it with ones that are far away from so much traffic, vehicular traffic, right? Yeah.
Is there any downside for banning albatross other than hurt other than?
Is there any downside for banding the chicks, other than they could get hurt with their banding? Only that they hate you afterwards. It's beneficial for us to follow them. Yes, absolutely. I have a whole chapter on that in my book about how heartbreaking it is to watch them learn to distrust you. But we can protect them better if we know who's returning and how well they're doing. So those of us that look at the rural colonies, you go up to them and you look at their bands and you look who's here, and they barely yawn at you. And then the chicks, when they're growing up, they're used to seeing you, they barely yawn at you. And after they're banded, they run from you. So I hate that part. But no, not all of them. Some of them learn to trust you again. And it depends on the people who do the banding too. If they're held really briefly and expertly, 20 seconds, it's over, then the chicks aren't so bad. But if they're held for minutes and the tool doesn't work and they really, then after that they say, I thought I could trust you. I mean, I thought you were nothing, and now I know you're something, and it's not something I like. So that's hard. Yes.
I saw the pair of birds doing their mating dance. And they were doing certain motions at one time, and then they changed to a different pattern.
Right.
Have people figured out what the different parts are?
They have, I think, about 20 different moves, and they do them in no predictable order. They might do them, they might be following each other. They might, the ones who are long-term mates tend to be able to dance in greater synchrony than the teenagers do who are trying to figure out how to do the moves. And I'm told that each of those moves represents a certain aspect of their life. So they can show you, they show you, I can do this, look, I can do this. The armpit sniff is showing you that I can preen myself. All those moves have a meaning. And often you see before they dance, they bow to each other too. If you film them sometime in slow motion and watch that, you learn a lot. But yeah, they mix up their moves. Patty.
The biggest albatross you have tracked or seen here on Kauaʻi?
Biggest?
Biggest, both in terms of wingspan
Oh.
and weight.
We don't usually measure wingspan and weight, so I couldn't tell you that. We try to keep track of age. So I think the oldest one, because Wisdom, right, and Midway, they say she's 74. I think she's closer to 79, but okay. Because when you're this age, you deserve credit for all the years you're here, right? Okay, so anyway, so she's almost 80, whatever it is. But I don't think very many people can tell you what her wingspan is or how much she weighs. We don't handle them unnecessarily. We don't want to handle them unnecessarily. They hate it and they could get injured, right? Sometimes when monitors are put on them, it's for good reason to follow them, but yeah.
When do female-female pairs occur?
When do they occur? All the time. Here in Princeville, I think is the highest percentage of any colonies here. One year we had 50%, right, Kat? Yeah, 50% were female-female pairs. They don't occur in such numbers in Midway, is my understanding. Nobody's really ever tracked that. I mean, excuse me, 620,000 nests. Who's going to go up and say, excuse me, are you a boy or a girl? Because you can't tell them apart, right? How would you know unless you see the egg coming out of the cloaca? When I went to nursing school, that meant you're a girl. It may have changed. I don't know, right, Nikki? Yeah, maybe. Angie's a nurse, but she's going, well, maybe it changed. Okay, you can't tell for sure. So there are good numbers of female-female pairs on Kauaʻi. That's why the adoption program is so helpful. And that's why we also want those adoptive eggs to come to safe nests in Princeville. Does that answer the question? Okay. Is that it? Okay. More hands. Yes, Jacqueline, speak up. Okay, she's going to tell you how much they weigh and how big they are.
Oh, I only know kilograms. 2.2 to 2.7 is probably like the average, but a chick can go way over 3 kilograms. It's really not that
Put
much.
it in pounds for the white people here.
It's probably like less than less than 2 pounds for sure. They're actually not that chunky. That is it. That is 2.2 to 2.2 kilograms to 2.7 kilograms.
So what's the heaviest albatross you've seen?
Oh, I don't know. I
7 or
don't
8
think
pounds?
they're actually 7 or 8 pounds, but
Yeah.
that's what they are in kilograms.
Have you
If that
seen-
math is right, then sure.
Have you seen much variation in wingspan?
I don't measure wingspan except at release, and I don't know the wingspan off the top of my head, and it's in millimeters, so that will be even
Right.
more confusing for everyone. So I don't know in
Right, right,
feet,
yeah.
but I
Yeah,
do
yeah.
have the info, just not off the top
Right.
of my head.
Yeah, so the wingspan is essentially spoken of as 6.5 feet. And it may vary a little bit from that, but it's not gonna be a huge variation. And weighing them, they only do it for caregiving there, just to make sure the chicks are gaining weight like they should, right? Is the main reason you weigh them. But otherwise, we wouldn't weigh them. And I'm not sure that more weight would be good for them anyway. But-
they usually do the peak weight and then they drop back down.
Exactly.
Like you were
Yeah,
explaining
exactly.
earlier.
Yeah, yeah, they get up and weight and then they drop back down. Yeah, exactly. When the chicks are small, if you had to pick up one for some reason, they feel like water balloons. You know, they're just sloshy with full of stuff. But they have to be lightweight to fly, right? So you want them in a certain weight range. And when Save Our Shearwaters or any other rehab organization is going to release them, they will measure wing chord and they will measure weight and they will make sure that the wings cross in the back like this, that there's an X, so they're long enough and the bird shows enough ambition and can waterproof themselves. They put them in the pool. And once they're ready, then they'll take them off to fledge from there, from wherever you take them. Right?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Yes.
Do you have any statistics about the number of birds in the neighborhoods, in the residential neighborhoods, as opposed, thank you, Tom, as opposed to the refuge? Or in the, when you
Statistics
call the,
about-
yeah, the
statistics
rural
about-
area, how many nests are?
Kathy keeps track of all of that. Kathy
Okay.
Random right here keeps track.
23 in Princeville itself and the, okay, and the rest are in the refuge or in rural areas? Like the golf course is in a whole nother. Yeah, but the people's yards are in Princeville, right? So,
Yeah, she's talking about Princeville only. When she
Right.
tells you the nest numbers.
okay.
So they could be in people's yards, they could be on the golf course. There's one that's way out on that golf course.
How about in the refuge? Are there
Yeah.
many of them in the refuges?
Oh, yeah, these,
Kilauea as
Yeah,
well as?
yeah, these folks
the
over here,
others?
like Patty and Louise are out there monitoring, Thomas are out there monitoring all the Kilauea birds too.
So I'm just asking, what is the proportion from the urban and the rural or the parkland? 60-40. It did say 60-40.
What? Yeah, yeah, 61% is on private land and 39% is on federal land. There's not really urban in Kauaʻi, but but Princeville is more people.
Suburban.
Yeah, suburban, right,
The
yeah.
suburban bird.
Yeah, yeah, but because of the private landowners, you know, they might have one, they might have 40 on their property. It's really important to stay in touch with them and keep a consistent relationship with their property managers and make sure we all have access and make sure the agency people have access to ban them and all that. It's all meant to be cooperative,
Right.
and by and large is.
Well, it's an amazing
Yeah.
phenomenon.
It is. It really is. Yeah, absolutely. There was another hand.
Are you doing anything?
Protect the land.
Yeah.
Oh. Yes, well, that's a whole nother conversation, isn't it? Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation about what kind of building is going to happen in Princeville in the future. Yeah. I would say that's of minimal attention for me right now in this particular time of the year. I'm more paying attention to the birds in front of me and keeping them safe and coming up with other strategies for spaying and neutering. And we're putting together, starting in May, there's Patrick Ching is going to paint a big mural down in the Kauaʻi Community College at the entrance to the Performing Arts Center. In between the two doors, there's going to be a big seabird mural there that we're just signing the contract for. And so the idea is for the Kauaʻi Albatross Network, there are two goals. One is the safety of the birds, and the other one is expanding the fan club. So the more fan club we have, the more skills we have, the better it is for the longevity of the birds. They're still going to face lots of challenges, as so is our species. So they're not different than us. But whether there's more development or not is going to be up to the courts here in Princeville.
Is there a point person here in Princeville on the council that is interested in these issues?
On the council, the county
Yeah.
council?
Or either the county council or the Princeville Association who's concerned about these issues?
I would say that's
do-
mostly the SOS HUI. Would you say that? So the
Who?
SOS HUI, HUI, I'm
Uh-huh.
not sure what their website is, but Google SOS HUI, HUI.
Yes.
Those folks are the ones that have brought lawsuit because of the anthrax issue.
Right.
And they're the ones that are also objecting to the massive build out of the golf courses.
So there's no one person who is.
But no, well, I mean, there's some individuals there. Yeah, definitely talk to them if you want to know more. Patty's on the board here. Open space, yeah, open spaces, yeah. Yeah, they do care about open spaces, but they're also, and open spaces means no development, right, on the golf course. And it also means they're concerned about the anthrax issue. There's anthrax buried under or there were cattle with anthrax that were buried a century ago under where they want to build. And so the question is that still dangerous or not? I'm not an expert on that. Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir. Yeah, okay. Yes,
Do they fight, like, they don't fight the police, especially those, but I mean, will people be itching from the mosquitoes? That's all.
will people be hurt by the mosquitoes?
Yeah.
They're only releasing male mosquitoes, only females bite. Right, only females bite. The idea is to eliminate the females' reproductivity, yeah, right, by having, then they are attracted for some reason to the neutered, let's call them mosquitoes with condoms, whatever you want to call them. That's a hard job. But the sterile mosquitoes, are attracted to mate with them, and out come no eggs, or no fertile eggs, right? Okay, there was another question somewhere. Patty, yes. Okay.
There are orange traffic cones that were put by a nest that's on Kamahana in Princeville. Do you know who placed those there? There's some orange cones that were placed by a nest that's on Kamahana. Yeah, on Kamehameha Road by Kamahana. Do you know who put the orange cones there? That's the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Kathy said that she's working with the condo association people about those, and that's what we like to do. We work with the condo associations where those nests are when there's a collective living situation or a home. The people who then will place the cones or recommend cones will discuss that with those folks. So I don't know who personally puts them there. You said Linda somebody? Linda somebody.
We love Linda's.
Did that answer your question, Patty?
If not, I can answer it through chat.
Okay. Other questions? We're done with questions? You have been so patient. Look at you all staying here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hob.
Go talk to Krista and Jacqueline about your volunteer hours, whatever you can do. Talk to these folks about making donations, buy some stuff in the back, and I'll be happy to inscribe your book for you. Thank you so much for coming.